All right, let's dive into an absolutely epic journey. We're going to trace the path of ancient humanity across the Indian subcontinent, from the very first wanderers all the way to the builders of incredible, mighty empires. Let's get right into it.
So here's the big question we're tackling today. How on earth did tiny, scattered bands of ancient people manage to grow into some of the world's greatest empires? It's really the story of civilization itself, and we're going to see exactly how it all happened, one step at a time.
Okay, so where does a story like this even begin? Well, we've got to go way, way back, about 2 million years ago, actually. To really understand how empires get built, you have to start right here, with the very first people who laid the groundwork for everything to come.
Now, to really get a handle on this, you have to look at this timeline. It's kind of mind-blowing. The Paleolithic, or the Old Stone Age, stretches from 2 million years ago all the way to just 12,000 years ago. That one period, that's 99% of all human history. Think about that. Almost everything we call history, cities, writing, empires, it all happened in the tiny 1% sliver at the very end.
For almost all of that time, people were hunter-gatherers. Now, you might think of them as just wandering around aimlessly, but nope, their movement was a brilliant survival strategy. They moved because they had to find new food, to follow the herds they were hunting, to be in the right place when different plants came into season. It was a life lived totally in sync with the world around them.
And then, everything changed. About 12,000 years ago, the world's climate started to warm up. This one environmental shift set the stage for one of the biggest revolutions in human history, the move away from wandering and towards farming and settling down.
And you know what's so cool? We can actually see this change in the archaeological record. Take a look here. On the left, you've got the teeth of a wild pig. On the right, a domesticated one. See the difference? Look how much smaller the domesticated pig's teeth are. This is actual physical proof that humans were starting to shape the animal kingdom themselves. So this whole process has a name, domestication. It's basically where people started to play favorites. They'd pick the plants with the biggest grains or the animals that were the calmest and breed them. For the very first time, we weren't just living in nature. We were actively changing it to fit our needs. And that, my friends, was a total game changer.
So once you can grow your own food, you don't have to move around anymore, right? You can stay in one place. And that stability, well, that's what leads to the next giant leap in our story, the rise of the first great cities. Fast forward to about 4,700 years ago, and boom! One of the world's first urban civilizations pops up right here. Looking at this map, you see places like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. And these weren't just little towns. They were part of a huge connected network of cities that covered a massive area. And I'm not talking about a few huts here. These cities were unbelievably advanced for their time. We're talking planned streets, buildings made from uniform baked bricks, and, get this, incredibly well-planned drainage and sewer systems. They had artists making beautiful things, and they were trading with people hundreds of miles away. This was city life, in full swing, thousands of years ago.
But then, something strange happens. It's a real historical mystery. Around 3,900 years ago, people just started leaving these incredible cities. The streets filled with garbage. Those amazing drainage systems just broke down. So, why? Honestly, we still don't know for sure. Maybe the rivers dried up. Maybe there were massive floods. Whatever it was, one of the world's first great civilizations just faded away.
So, after these amazing cities fade, a new kind of society starts to form in the centuries that followed. And for us, the way we learn about them also changes. We start moving from looking at just the ruins of buildings to trying to figure out their words and their beliefs.
Think of us as detectives. Our clues for this period come from two main sources. On one hand, you have manuscripts, books written by hand on things like palm leaves, which are super fragile. A lot of them are gone forever. But on the other hand, you have inscriptions, writing that's carved right into hard stone or metal. And those have lasted for thousands of years. And these texts, wow, they're like a time machine. One of the most important is the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest books in the entire world. For centuries, it was just passed down by word of mouth before anyone wrote it down, and its hymns give us this incredible peek into what these people believed and how they lived.
So what do these texts tell us? Well, they paint a picture of their society. You had priests, the Brahmins, who took care of all the important rituals. You had rulers called Rajas, but they weren't like the kings we think of today. They didn't have big capital cities or huge armies. The texts also talk about the ordinary people, the jana, and even their enemies, the dasas, who they said had different languages and customs. But hey, books aren't the only clues we have. Archaeology gives us other vital pieces of the puzzle, especially from graves. All over the subcontinent, you find these things called megaliths, big stone markers for burial sites. And what people were buried with tells you so much. Some graves just have a few simple pots, but others are filled with iron weapons, skeletons of horses, and beautiful gold jewelry. It's a clear signal that not everyone was equal anymore. Social differences were definitely growing.
So you see this pattern emerging, right? More powerful leaders, more differences in wealth, and that all builds up to our final chapter, the rise of huge kingdoms and the very first true empires, which managed to unite massive parts of the subcontinent under one rule.
And if you want to get a picture of just how powerful these new rulers were, just listen to this incredible description from a Greek ambassador named Megasthenes. He's talking about the emperor being carried in a golden palanquin, with guards on elephants decorated with gold and silver. I mean, that is a world away from those early rajas, right? But all that power, it came with a horrifying price tag. This here is from the great Emperor Ashoka, in his own words, carved into stone. He's describing his conquest of a place called Kalinga. He talks about how more than 100,000 people were killed. The sheer horror of it filled him with so much sorrow that it changed him completely. He gave up conquest and decided to rule through Dhamma, a philosophy based on peace, respect, and care. But it wasn't all about war and conquest. These empires were also massive hubs of connection. This map shows the legendary Silk Route. Rulers like the Kushanas, who controlled a big chunk of this route about 2,000 years ago, became fabulously wealthy just by taxing all the traders passing through. So what exactly were people trading? Just imagine these caravans. Spices, silk, cotton, and ivory were flowing out of the subcontinent, and coming in, you had gold, wine, coral, and so much more. This was a truly interconnected world, buzzing with trade and new ideas. And all that wealth, all that stability, it left behind a legacy you can still see today in incredible art and architecture. Just look at the Great Stupa at Sanchi. And what's amazing is that buildings like this weren't just paid for by kings. Merchants, artisans, even regular farmers all pitched in. It's a real testament to the shared prosperity of an entire age. So there you have it. We've gone from the simplest stone tools all the way to grand, continent-spanning empires. We've seen farming change everything, watched the first cities rise and fall, and witnessed the birth of powerful kingdoms. It's an absolutely incredible human story. Which leaves me with one final question for you to chew on. Out of everything we've seen, what single innovation, whether it's a tool, an idea, or a way of organizing people, what do you think was the most crucial spark for this entire journey?